I've always thought of myself as an amateur poet. I had a book of poetry out last year which was called Deaths for the Ladies and Other Disasters. And in it was a form which was not properly poetry. There were a great many very short poems written in a short, broken line. And the aim of the poem was not so much to write a poem which could stand by itself as to create a great many little short poems or bursts of wit or fillips of wit which would be interesting to the eye placed next to one another on the page. I'm going to try to read a few of them to give you some idea of the beginning of Deaths for the Ladies. These short poems were called Short Hairs, the spelling H-A-I-R-S. There is no rest for the wicked, wrote Mr. M., discovering the art of the short hair. Explanations. The art of the short hair is that it don't go on for too long. Here's a short hair called Cafe Society. It always ruins a meal to walk half a block. This short hair is called Cheerleader. She went to Southern Baptist U, but somehow she never did find out who John the Baptist was. A short hair called Testaments. I never scored, said Snake. It was Adam I wanted, but Eve bought the cake. Girl, if you was a boy and I was queer, I could go for you. And here is one which is slightly longer, called Illuminations. It's no longer properly obedient to the form of the short hair. Why do you always have to go off on a tangent, said his mother. Why can't you be nice and clean? Look, your handkerchief has a hole in it. Let me give you a new one. Don't you dare. This way I can blow my nose and see what's going on, said Rambo at 6. Further into this book of poems, Deaths for the Ladies, the poems become somewhat longer and often more shocking. This poem was considered particularly shocking by some. It's called In the Hallway, and it's in two parts. Part 1 is on the left side of the page. Part 2 is on the right. Part 1. My God, she said, I came in my hat. This time, baby, take your shoes off, he said. Part 2. My God, he said, this time I came in my hat. Well, take it off, she said. I want to see the baby and how his hair will be. Here's another shocker called Elegance. You have one of the greatest asses in town, he said. Is it extraordinary, she asked. No, it's excellent. Please do stop. Another one similar to this goes, Midnight, said the lipstick, your mascara is mud. I know, said the eyes, but he was so attractive, and he ended in the vast middle. Upper middle, said the ego, he kissed my coos. 'Twas booze, said Dom, her nose on fortune. Further into Deaths for the Ladies, the poems become more complex. This one is entitled Rainy Afternoon with the Wife. Wanted without wings is stone dew, lady. Grey mandarins without grace is day with prey. You're a king with feet of clay. No, lass, I'm a mandarin, said, and reached for a beer. First of the blow. You can't have a beer. Mama says no. By God, if I had a mama like you, I'd never have reached the age of 6. Wanted without wings is stone dew. Grey without grace, day. Grey without grace, day. Grey without grace. Repetition kills the soul, for its offers dull the whole, and sow the wound of memory with death. Where life was once a tree, nestling the root with gyres of sky and midnights murmuring summer. As it grows, the flower breaks through the stone. It has yet to prove itself against the clay. Grey without grace, day. Poems written by masochists flop like cows in the meadow. Take pity on me, they cry. Pay attention. I am so sensitive to nature and full of milk. Poems should be like pins which prick the skin of boredom and leave a glow equal in its pride to the gait of the sadist who stuck the pin and walked away. The next poem is a departure from 3 lines written by T.S. Eliot. I quote them first. Our concern was speech, and speech impelled us to purify the dialect of the tribe and urge the mind to aftersight and foresight. Aftersight and foresight. The sound is dull in the ear, like a bruise on fruit, or the passage of bland taint in strong meat. So curious a man, this Eliot, exquisite, forceful, superb, but dimmed in his climax. No wonder he caught the spirit of an age. Aftersight and foresight. Hole upon hole is the dead of poetry as a scheme in rhyme. Some poems are mild and pleasant little children who bear no title and need none. One doesn't notice their nakedness. A title is not a hat, but a suit. So sometimes I leave it at the bottom of the page, for I don't want all these poems to be naked. Some should be standing with their trousers dropped to their knees. Of course, by this logic, a title at the head is like a dress lifted over the breast. This poem is called Procurement. Its title is at the head. Lie down with dogs, you rise with figs, said the lady who was the loveliest of all my pigs. Call this poem the marketplace, cried the red-haired negress who bore my ace. Whores I prate, make no ditties of my sores, for a pimp who shows no limp in the gait of his will has escaped all ill. Togetherness. My flesh must smell like an old tire. My sex is bitter and gone. My days are leafless and all sleep, said the housewife, going to the specialist. One knows what kind. But in the waiting room, she was racked by a plague from the pots of the American miasma, our magazines. And so lady murmured too quietly even for her mind to hear. Reader's Digest, please save your soul and leave mine free to contemplate eternity, which must be more than I glimpse for myself now, an endless promenade across a field of baked old beans, a cataract of dishwater, regurgitated by the memory of champagne I never drank and kings I never kissed. This poem is called Witchcraft. When I was your age, 27, a dame could say, I'll put a curse on you. On, I would say, put a curse on me, and wonder why my voice would break. The call girl walked along the bar, escorted by a plump, virile, pomaded, hip businessman, minor league mafia, and behind them trailed a smell of stale sulfur. Oh, sex, you are dying, I know, but in whose name, and for what cause? Do your duty, said I to the beauty, as she turned from love, the act, and sauntered down the hall to commune with porcelain, fluorescent light, and hound's sigh of lavatory water, languishing after the souls my beauty chose to taste and flush away. Not you, but your cure, do I fear, O my love, for your cure is a curse upon me. Somehow I've never quite believed in women, said the Lord, as he gave a sad goose to Adam and banished him. This poem is called The Adventurer. I don't mind a party that gets a little rough, but did you have to throw up in my foyer, said the lady. Despair never, said the drunk. I'll pick it up. I'll really pick it up, because I don't believe in leaving my leavings at a lady's door when she's a lady like you, you crappy old unhappy bag of an armpit. Anyone ever say you're beautiful, said the drunk as he fell on his nose, trying to kiss lady and her fortune. How can you say you're only 3/4 a man? Why, you're completely a man, said the lady in a 3/4 voice. Definition of a lady. She grasps the root while kissing the bud. Here's a poem called Courtship. It's a fine wine, hearty as one drinks it, peppery, yet it seems to come florid and soft. Yes, I answered. We have an old peasant saying, it's a fine wine, but the devil farted in it once. The economy of love. Your eyes are beautiful, said my love. Yes, said I, eyes of mine have seen your breast, and so are beautiful. But my heart was immersed in that calculus of the soul which measures the profit and cost of conversions from beauty to power. Your eyes are beautiful, said my love, and have left me. This poem is called Death of a Lover Who Loved Death. I find that most of the people I know are immature and cannot cope with reality, said the suicide. His death followed a slash on each wrist. Fit was this end, for blood in its flow reveals what a furnace had burned in the dungeon of his unconscious. Burn and bleed. He coped with reality too well. It was unreality which waited on a midnight trail in that fierce jungle of eternity he heard murmuring on the other side. Oh, night of the jungle, God of mercy, wept the suicide. Do not ask me to reconnoiter this dark trail when I am now without hands. This poem is called Hunting. Men who go out to kill deer hope to find in the blood of the new dead the poems of my flesh, said the deer in the forest. There's one thing about you, baby, said Sir Cirrhosis. Of all the witches I've known, you're the merriest. And he died with style. He died with style, said the witch. Yes, said the wind, which rose from the spirit of the djinn. Give him honor in hell. This next poem, The Harbors of the Moon, is about death. I know a town with sighs of sea, smiled the white witch. I know a town which sails the sun. I know a town where light is dry, and boats come home with silver in their hold. Where boats come home with silver in their hold. Do not grieve the death of little fish. They are lights which smell the deep. I know a town with sighs of sea, white with the tides of me, white as the spine of the sea. Certain evictions. In the first week of their life, male Jews are crucified. The pain is exquisite. To discover the tip of your future by losing it is a fair price to pay for having been once so tense as to fail the race when he chose a Jew without a future to save it. Grace. In the first week of their life, grace is crucified. The corners of a square. It would be an aid if the blind came to the game, because their ears are clean, said the dream. I would be afraid of those who hear and do not see, said the word. I am in love with those who come with their wound to me, said the mood. For those who see and do not hear wound others with their voice. Those who hear and do not see give alms to Eve and other ill, said the peace which comes from the police. Eternities. I'm rich, said Irish Derby, slopping a drink to the floor. So I've always missed the pleasures of the poor. Taste his spit, said the sawdust. It's a scandal and a shame. Naught but outer limbo, said the roach on his way, on his fraught-filled way, on his fraught-filled way to the door, and toward the stair of his own. When he reached the cracked enamel in the kitchen of his pad, he made a tour of quarters, leaving molecules like pennies on the oilcloth of the poor, 5 molecules of scotch to every plate. But the fumes had drunk his mind to stuff, and Roachy slept an emperor's sleep, dreaming of previous lives and derby hats, when he had slopped the whiskey to the floor, crying for the pleasures of the poor. He pissed with a stern loneliness, leaving a fierce and disgruntled smell of the past. His future was not so empty as he declared. A girl with music and grace, ugly of face, was waiting for him. Hey, you sleep deep, but what a sight. See you soon, beautiful, I hope. Since the lady found this note by her telephone, on awakening in an empty bed after a one-night stand, she called her best friend a girl and said, "Guess what? I feel like Earth Mother. Hey, you sleep deep, but what a sight. This poem is called Funky Love. We really ought, she said, to be able to stay together without making love all the time. Yes, he said smugly. I'm sure it's my fault. Yes, she said smugly. You smell so greedy and good. Swarms and swarms of love. Smug, smug, smug. You may not love me, I said, but I love you. Well, I love you, she said, so bad luck. We loved each other very much. I do not think we had taken a good wash in 3 weeks. It would have been the next wrong to murdering a child. What the hell? We were both 30, 40, tired, tried, sad, foul. We thought we had betrayed something forever, and she forgave us, or thus we hoped. So bad luck, muttered the horror of old habit. I will die if I lose your love. Mangled, morgued, birched, and bruited, they stepped forth, death their suitor, cursed by hair which knew no sea, for they were hawks upon the mood of their own blessing. Besides, they still found other people attractive. Slack were the oars, tight the jaws, hurricane the air of waiting, while they discovered less than they were offered. Mangled, morgued, birched, and bruited, they scattered in their souls, waiting for the curse. This little poem is called Naked. Where the act fails, sleep binds the bodies of those who were born to love each other in truth. Men who are not married and grow beards are insecure, said the CIA before it went to Cuba. Johnny, what can I do, said the girl. I gotta pee. She was in a strange pad, 3 hours long. Why, just come here, princess, said Johnny, and I'll lead you to the throne, who serves as sink. Oh, indeed, Johnny, said the girl. You're funny. This poem is called Logic. A. When Napoleon met Goethe, it was the emperor who wrote the poem. B. When I met Kennedy. C. Either Jack is a greater man than me, or times have changed. A plague is coming named virus YSX, still unsolved. Promises to be proof against antibiotics, psychoanalysis, research projects, vitamins, awards, crash programs, crash diets, symposiums, foundations, rest, rehabilitation, tranquilizers, aspirin, surgery, brainwashing, lobotomies, rises in status, box office boffo, perversions, and even a good piece of... When that unhappy day comes to America, let the Russians take over. The best defense is infection. Distinctions. I'd rather be screwed up than sick. This poem is called Catnip for the Kiddies. Does the football team eat a lot? Asked the announcer. Oh, I think so, Jim. Those football boys are pretty big down there. When did you two Titans last meet? Well, Bud, it was in November 1960, that fateful gray day in Philadelphia. The weather was so bad we almost stayed in our hotel and ate each other. Our boys were keyed up, I tell you. Farewell to Arms, revisited. I feel like I've been through purgatory, Catherine said. Sometimes I think it won't be bad when we die, because we've served part of purgatory already. Yes, it's been bad. But 12 years ago, we were good. Oh, darling, good, she agreed. So good. I used to think it would be endless. I thought it would be always. But it wasn't. It turned out to be such a little taste of heaven for 12 long years. A little taste of heaven is all we get, baby, said Carol Chessman through the microphone and plate glass window of the visitors' room, under the shotguns, eyes, bellies, and blue serge suits of the guards who guard the Sacred Heart of the Republic. Freedom of the press. Let every writer tell his own lies. That's freedom of the press. This poem is called To the Ghost of His Late Highness the Senator, and it's dedicated to my publisher, Walter Minton, who had the high taste and good courage to include it in this book of poems. Another orphan, said McCarthy. Let's have a high mass and kiss her ass before we kick her cunt in, Sister Superior. Oh, is this poem good for the Jews? Asked Reverend Godsby of the Interfaith Council for Tolerance, Muscular Dystrophy, and Communities of Cancer. Kick his cunt in too, said McCarthy. Reverend Godsby is a communist. You're fucking A, said all the louts and all the bars in Queens. And they were right for once. The establishment. You can't and you won't print that, said the goddess, in a voice which released half her souls from prison and dropped them into hell. Exodus. Goodbye, America, Jesus said. Come back, boy, we cried too late. The last poem in Deaths for the Ladies is called Timing. Listen, my love, the hour is late. My side has an ache. If you don't get a taxi, my heart will break.